Good morning. This is Quigley's Corners. I am Dianne MacMillan Arril, and my family actually lived on the southeast side of the corner, right across there. And that's why I can state that I lived at Quigley's Corners as well as the Quigleys. The Glengarry Historical Society, they have erected a sign, a plaque actually, in commemoration of the work and inspiration of the Quigleys in this area, particularly Owen Quigley. And I would like to read you what this sign says. Brothers Owen and Patrick Quigley, born on a nearby farm of a family originally from Armagh, Ireland, established a hotel and store at the Crossroads in 1850. They also pursued interest in lumber and potash and encouraged other tradesmen to locate here. Lochiel Township Council meetings were long held in Quigley's Hotel, with Owen Quigley serving as the township clerk. The brothers' activities fostered the rise of the village as an economic and administrative centre, and it became known as Quigley's Corner and later as Lochiel. The village was the headquarters from 1907 to 1966 of the Glengarry Telephone Company, which served some 600 area customers and numbered among the last independent telephone companies in Canada. Owen Quigley's grandfather, John Quigley, originally from Armagh, Ireland, was ceded land from the Crown in 1815 after he was mustered out of the King's 8th Regiment of Foot and the War of 1812 was over. 3 generations lived here in the 4th of Lochiel Township, the 17th. Owen Quigley was one of 7 children born to James Quigley and Mary McCormick, and he arrived in 1817. They were an industrious family. They worked hard and operated on their farm and provided some extra monies, a potash business, and this was the monies provided for farmers and small business operations in the surrounding communities. The ashes, the byproduct of land clearing, were sold to the ashery business owner. By 1845, the Quigley family owned the east half of Lot 26 and the 5th, which is Lochiel Corner. This corner had always attracted tradesmen and craftsmen who were necessary to the pioneer farmer: blacksmith, shoemaker, sawyer, dressmaker, carpenter, weaver, etc. The pioneer farmer who had immigrated to the eastern district of Upper Canada from Scotland, and 2 large immigrations occurred in 1794 and 1802. Now, when they were relocated to Canada, this would be coming to the east part of Upper Canada, and they were looking at what we now know as Stormont, Dundas, or Glengarry County. It should be noted that Lancaster and Charlottenburg townships were the original divisions in Glengarry. And in 1798, the north part of Glengarry was separated and named Prescott County. In 1818, Lancaster, having 18 concessions, would be reduced to 9, and the northern 9 would be given township status, known as Lochiel, numbering 1 to 9 as concessions, each divided by a road. When these immigrants first came, they were looking at a wilderness. To find their designated plots, they had to tramp through the bush to their assigned property and adhere to the rules outlined in order to be granted a deed to this property. The rules were as follows: a cabin must be built, a certain number of acres must be cleared, lots must be lived on for at least 4 years in order to qualify. Now, Owen and his brother Patrick saw the potential in having a store and a hotel built and operational on this new acquisition as soon as possible. And by 1850, they realized this plan. They also owned a grist mill and a sawmill. The Crossroads was well located, being approximately halfway between the Ottawa and St. Lawrence rivers, and the transportation route along Military Road East from Fassifern, turning north at the corner towards Kirkhill and beyond, which would be Lochiel and L'Orignal, joined the north and the south. This gave access to travelers, goods, supplies, and entertainment for the burgeoning farming community and those tradesmen who were their suppliers. The hotel, built and operational by 1850, was designed as a meeting place, an inn, and a drinking establishment. The township's council's regular meetings were held for years in Owen Quigley's hotel, and it should be noted Owen Quigley served as the township clerk from 1851 to 1871. The council meetings minutes tell much about the day-to-day history. There was discussion about repairs of bridges and roads, the appointments of fence viewers, pathmasters, road commissioner, pound keepers, assessors, tax collectors, raising of money for school purposes, and the recommendations of fit and proper persons to be granted tavern licenses, giving Lochiel quite a solid infrastructure. Nomination meetings for elections were held there, and the candidates would speak from the balcony at the front to usually a capacity crowd in the roadway. A further incentive introduced by Owen Quigley to the growing hamlet and the surrounding area was leasing. The first farm lot of his was leased on April 16, 1862, and the second October 14, 1864. In succeeding years, quite a number of half-acre lots were leased on long-term leases of 99 years. Very few were deeded. These homes, log cabins, had a garden, a patch of potatoes, a small stable, and barn for a cow and a flock of hens. The store was also operational by 1850 for goods, supplies, and services, especially the postal service. It was now housed at Quigley's store, where Owen Quigley was postmaster from 1853 to 1864. Regular mail service came fairly early. By 1855, there was a daily stage service each way between L'Orignal and Lancaster. The mail was dropped off at Quigley's and sorted. From this point, it would be contracted for delivery east to Glensanfield, where mail drops were accepted, and west to Lagan and Skye. Rural mail delivery took over in 1915, and mail service delivery operated out of Alexandria. It is noteworthy, though, that Lot 26, Quigley's Corner, or Lochiel, had the post office, the first post office, in 1821, the second in Glengarry County. The growing community of Lochiel wanted and needed their own parish home. An acre of land had been given to Donald MacDonnell, had been given by Donald MacDonnell, the 28 and the 5th, which was just west of Quigley's, for a Roman Catholic church and a cemetery to be built. This spiritual need was indeed accomplished by the parishioners in 1851, St. Alexander's, followed in 3 years by the building of the presbytery across from St. Alexander's on land donated by John MacDonnell, Donald's brother, and that would put it in the 4th concession. In 1842, Lochiel had a population of 2,647. Where were the children schooled? There is a document shown under Early Schools, 1840, in Butternuts and Maple Sugar by Elsie MacMillan, that lists Owen Quigley as being a teacher for the Board of Education for Lochiel Township Common School from the 1st of January to the 31st of December, 1840. By 1875, there were 17 public schools for grades 1 to 8. PSS number 5 Lochiel, always referred to as the Cement School, was west of Quigley's Corner about a mile. It eventually became a 2-room school because of enrollment. This school was built later than PS number 6, Lorne. Lorne School is located about a mile east of Quigley's, on the south side of Lochiel Road, the 4th concession, near the bend that will take you north to Brodie or south to Glensanfield. This was a 1-room school built of wood in 1869 and served the families well enough, but not without problems. The spring flooding was annual. In 1878, local people decided to purchase a new school site. The deed was registered for November 14, 1878, where the building still stands. The site was almost across the Lochiel Road, now on the north side, and a bit farther east from the original location, which put it at the corner where the road goes to north and south. This building still stands. I have many fond memories of this one-room school where my brother and sister and I received our elementary education. 8 grades were taught. By 1969, the rural school buildings were sold to the private sector, and a new consolidated school at Lagan became the elementary school for the community. The students would be bused. Scottish people had always made cheese, and factories developed in many communities. Selling milk to the factories was a source of income. The Glengarry News, September 24, 1909, stated that there were 77 cheese factories in Glengarry that year. 3 were on the 14th, the old 14th, which is the 5th concession, Lochiel. One of these was at Quigley's Corners, operated by my grandfather's brother, Dianne MacMillan. In the April 20th edition of the Glengarry News, 1951, was reported, the Carnation Milk Company is erecting a modern milk condensing station in Alexandria. On March the 26th, 1964, the Glengarry News reports, the big cheese factory erected by the Quigley Cheese Manufacturing Association at Lochiel is almost ready to go into production. March 20th, 1969, the Glengarry News. The Quigley Cheese Manufacturing Association reported a profit of $19,000 on the 1968 operation at their annual meeting. December the 11th, 1969. The Glengarry News. The Quigley Cheese Factory, in its first year of competition in the Royal International Competition Show at London, England, placed second in the 90-pound cheddar cheese class. Henry Giroux is head cheesemaker and a plant manager. Despite the excellent product produced, the conglomerates took over the marketplace. Also, the methods of governing the farmers' sales of milk in Canada made it impossible and impractical for the small cheese factory to continue in operation. Quigley's was the last small independent cheese factory. Now, Quigley's was an important and thriving place from the middle of the 19th century to the middle of the 20th century. In addition to the store and a hotel, there were at different times 2 or 3 blacksmith shops, a grist mill, a cheese factory, a seed cleaning plant, a furniture store, a coffin maker, someone selling buggies and cutters, a dressmaker, the Glengarry Telephone Exchange, its headquarters from 1907 to 1966, of the Glengarry Telephone Company Limited. This served some 600 area customers and was among the last independent telephone companies in Canada. It should be noted that the 2 switchboards used at Lochiel are on display at the Museum of Science and Technology in Ottawa. Owen Quigley died in 1878, and his land was willed to his son Charlie, who sold it 2 years later. There were a few changes of ownership, and eventually Lot 26 and the 5th was purchased by Keith MacMillan, my father. It still remains with my family today. On a military map dated 1850, the only mention of that corner was the notation Quigley's Inn. 3 hotel keepers succeeded the Quigleys, and the hotel was closed and dismantled in 1932. A township hall was built in its place, which became a combination council hall and entertainment center. In 1862, a map location is designated as both Quigley's Corners and the Lochiel Post Office, which has already been mentioned as being housed in the store. The store operated for many years following the death of Mr. Quigley and was the local meeting place in the community. Its ownership changed hands a few times, the last owner being Roddy MacDonald. The store burnt down and was never rebuilt. Supermarkets were within reach in Alexandria and other places nearby, so it did not seem practical or indeed feasible to rebuild. By 1970, the local community, as we looked at it nostalgically, was no longer as it had been. Roads had to improve to enable trade to move more efficiently. With the coming of the automobile, which did in fact encourage time appreciation and travel, consolidated services were appreciated. Was one-stop shopping the new phrase then? It also allowed the shopper or tourist to go to various places in less time. But as I recall, we still had to be home for milking. The roads certainly improved. Cars were everywhere. Snowplowing became a reality. One of the first seminars I ever took with the Ontario Teachers Federation on a professional development day, 1962 or thereabouts, was how to deal with leisure time. I never forgot the title of the discussion, but what they spoke about completely lost. Quigley slowly transformed into a residential hamlet, and business closed or relocated as they saw fit. Owen Quigley's family had gone from this area by 1900, and it had mentioned in conversations that the Quigley family as a whole were quite musical. Having noted that, I thought some mention should be made about the music and musical talent there has always been in Glengarry and certainly Lochiel. Singers, pianists, violinists, and fiddlers abound, and of course the bagpipes. With the enthusiasm for music, there was also a keen interest in sports. The Glengarry Soccer League was conceived in 1924 and organized thereafter in scheduled games. The playing fields were often pastures, but the zeal for the game never left. It was not until after World War II that Lochiel became more of a challenge to their opponents. The great players and teams from Pine Grove, Dunvegan, McCrimmon, and Greenfield certainly established the love for the game, and the fan base flourished. One of the results of this growth and love of this sport was the acceptance of the field adjacent to St. Andrew's Church, just west of Lochiel Corner, given by the church to be used. In 1962, lights were installed and completely funded with team and private help. This was an unheard of facility in a rural setting at that time. As many as 10 senior teams and 20 minor teams called it home for years in the soccer boom era of the 1990s. It is still very much in use. Owen Quigley would be pleased with his legacy.
This fellow, they ran out of booze, and he was picked to go down to the corner at Quigley's to own it. I can't think of his name. Anyway, to go down to the hotel there and get some booze and bring it back, and they claim that when he left there to go down there, he was a young fella and his hair was black, and he never came back. Like they waited and waited for him, he never came back. And the next time they saw him, they said his hair was snow white, and he wouldn't talk about the trip at all. He wouldn't tell them anything about what happened to him during that trip. It was that would only be a mile and a half, I think, maybe 2 miles for him to get there. So he was a changed man. He was a young man still in years, but he changed his ways completely. There was no more of him beating down the door with a with a horse.